Welcome to the whole story. Now, in the whole story, we put together all the information we have about one particular issue so you don't have to go looking for the background of that issue. Today, we're talking about the death of Stan Swamy, an 84-year-old man who died while asking and waiting for bail. Now, to bring you up to speed, the Jesuit priest and tribal activist Father Stan Swamy was 84 years old, passed away on Monday afternoon. Incidentally, the Bombay High Court was hearing an urgent petition for his bail on his deteriorating health when the court was informed by his lawyer and his doctor that he had in fact passed away. He was being treated for COVID. Now, after his death, the lawyer, Mihir Desai, who has been representing him, told the court that he doesn't have a complaint against the hospital or the court, but he blames the National Investigating Agency and Taloja Central Jail for Stan Swamy's death. Now, that brings us to a question of who was Father Stan Swamy, why was he in jail, and why does the lawyer believe that the National Investigating Agency and the Taloja Central Jail are responsible for his death? Let me take you back a little bit. Stan Swamy was born in Tamil Nadu in 1937. He was a Jesuit priest, like I told you. He was best known for his work among tribal people in Jharkhand. Now, while he had served as the director of the Indian Social Institute in Bengaluru from 1975 to 86, he went back to Jharkhand to serve the people when he was done. Now, he had a bachelor's degree and a master's degree that he had studied overseas. He was, in various statements, he's told stories about how he was struck when he lived among the tribal people by how sophisticated their culture, their tradition, their language, and their mode of self-government was. He was also surprised because they lived in such rich land of forest and minerals, but yet they were extremely poor. He noted, he said, that this was because they did not have rights and no one in government actually delivered their rights to them. Stan Swamy then made it his life's work to fight for the rights of tribal people. He also constantly called out the government's failure to implement the fifth schedule of the Constitution. Now, the fifth schedule of the Constitution tells every state government that the governor has special powers to specifically look after the areas in which tribal people live in those states. And he said that repeated state government after state government failed to do that job. He worked with many others to bring about the PESA Act, the PESA Act of 1996. It granted powers to the Gram Panchayat of the village, of the tribal village, where if anyone wanted to come and take their land for construction or for infrastructure or mining, they had to get consent of the Gram Sabha. He also realized that even after the new land acquisition rules and the PESA Act, the tribal people were not being given adequate compensation for that land, nor were they aware of their rights. So he apparently then went traveling from village to village inside of the forest and educating these people about their rights, so they knew what they were entitled to. He helped the younger tribals demand their rights every time someone wanted land for either mining or infrastructure or townships for them. He claims in his statement that the more and more tribal people demanded their rights, the more the police would just arrest them and throw them in jail, calling them Naxals. In 2017, he partnered with other rights activists, including Sudha Bharadwaj, to set up something called the Persecuted Prisoners Solidarity Committee, or the PPSC, including Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, and Jharkhand, states in which there are tribal people. And this group conducted research on the number of tribal people that were in jails languishing as under trials because they didn't have enough money for lawyers, and the police had fabricated evidence against them. He released that information saying that a large number of these tribal people had a monthly income of less than 3,000 rupees, which means they couldn't afford a lawyer. A lot of times, their version of the story and the police version of the story was completely different, and they were just in jail while their families had no breadwinner because the police had written up cases against them. Stan Swamy then went to the High Court against the Jharkhand government in 2017 and filed a case on behalf of 3,000 young tribal people who were languishing in jail against false claims or false cases framed by the police against them. Now, in a video that he put out right before he was arrested, he said that it was this case that caused him to become a thorn in the side of the government, which is why they were getting him moved out of the way. He basically said in that video that he had been interrogated by the NIA for 15 hours And the agency had asked him to come to Mumbai for the next round of interrogation. But he said that because he was very old, he was 83 at that time, he was frail and ailing, he had Parkinson's disease, and because it was a raging pandemic in October last year, he refused to come to Mumbai and said that he would make himself available through video conferencing. Nevertheless, on the 8th of October last year, in the middle of the pandemic, Stan Swamy was arrested by the NIA and brought to Mumbai under the Elgar Parishad case. He was charged under the UAPA anti-terror law, which is a very strict law that doesn't allow bail. The National Investigating Agency said that Stan Swamy had helped the cause of the Communist Party India Maoist, which is a banned organization, while he was working with other rights organizations. Now, there were several sort of source-based information in newspapers that he had also received money from various organizations, but none of the newspapers that we checked had an official quote from anyone in the NIA. These were all source-based without any sort of attribution to it. On the 3rd of July, Stan Swamy moved Bombay High Court challenging the fact that the NIA had brought UAPA against him. They were denying him bail, but they hadn't been able to prove any of the bring any of the proof against the allegations they had against him. At that time, the NIA argued that they have enough proof, but we haven't seen that proof yet. Stan Swamy is the oldest person to be charged of terrorism in India. He was 83 at that time. Now, the NIA say that he and his co-accused were working on behalf of the CPI Maoist to create a conspiracy to create unrest in the country. They said that on the 31st of December 2017, the police claimed that there were inflammatory speeches made at a conclave in Pune by all of these people. And according to the police, these speeches triggered riots in Bhima Koregaon, which resulted in violence. Stan Swamy said that he had never attended that event or never gone to that place at all, so he had nothing to do with it whatsoever. In fact, in a statement he released just before he was arrested, he said that he had nothing to do with Bhima Koregaon. He also said that the police had falsely planted, fabricated messages on his computer that he had never sent. Stan Swamy was in jail for a total of 9 months. His health continuously deteriorated when he was in jail. It took more than 2 months of him asking for a straw when he was in jail before he actually got it. Now, he had filed a plea before the court saying that he had a bag when he left Ranchi in which he had a sipper cup and a straw because he has Parkinson's disease and it causes tremors and he's not able to lift a glass to his lips. The court asked the NIA to hand him the sipper cup. The NIA took 3 weeks to respond to the court to say they don't have the sipper cup. They took another 20 days to respond to a petition asking for warm clothes in the winter. He was given his sipper cup in December last year when he was arrested in October. His health then continued to deteriorate. There were concerns about the fact that he might have contracted COVID in a very crowded prison because he was complaining of fever and weakness. His lawyers filed repeated appeals before the court to grant him bail on health grounds. In one hearing in May, the Bombay High Court asked him to appear on video conference and the judges noted that he couldn't even hear the person sitting next to him. He then said before the court that Taloja jail, and I quote, "Taloja jail has brought me to a situation when I can neither write, nor walk, nor eat by myself. Someone has to feed me with a spoon. I was taken to JJ hospital. I had no opportunity to explain what I should be given. The medicines which the jail authorities are giving me, my deterioration is more powerful than the tablets they're giving me." When the NIA actually argued against sending him to a private hospital and said, let's send him to JJ hospital, he said he would rather die in prison than be sent to a government hospital again because it's of no use. At that time, Taloja Central Jail apparently only had Ayurvedic doctors and did not have allopathic doctors to treat him. Stan Swamy was finally moved to Holy Family Hospital on the 28th of May. He tested positive for COVID and then was moved into the ICU. It was after that his lawyers filed one more urgent petition to grant him bail because he was moved onto a ventilator over the weekend. But Stan Swamy died before that petition could be heard. Stan Swamy is now free.
What is happening to me is not something unique happening to me alone. It's a broader process that is taking place all over the country. We are all aware how prominent intellectuals, lawyers, writers, poets, activists, student leaders, they are all put into jail just because they have expressed their dissent or raised questions about the ruling powers of the India. So we are part of the process. As such, in a way, I am happy to be part of this process because I'm not a silent spectator, but I'm part of it, part of the game, and ready to pay the price, whatever be it.